The last known message from the missing hikers was a single chilling whisper. "They're not letting us leave." The first call came in at 5:14 p.m. A distressed woman, barely able to speak through ragged breathing, whispered one sentence before the line went dead. "They're watching us from the trees." That was on a Tuesday, deep in the folds of Hollow Creek, a forgotten village nestled in the vast countryside of Grayfield County. A place with no gas station, one church, and the kind of silence that had weight to it. The kind that pressed on your chest like a premonition. The missing were three friends: Dana Keller, her fiancé Marcus Reed, and their old college buddy Tyler Voss. They had rented a remote cabin for what was supposed to be a quiet reunion, a chance to detox from city life, relive memories, and share a few drinks under the stars. Instead, their last known location was an unmarked trail miles away from the main road, found only because Marcus's phone pinged a final location before dying entirely. That ping became the epicenter of a search, one that quickly grew frantic. Local deputies, underfunded and unprepared, called in the county's only search and rescue team, but daylight was bleeding fast, and Hollow Creek was already beginning to rumble under the growing presence of an incoming storm. The weatherman warned of 2 days of unrelenting wind and rain. If they weren't found before it hit, survival chances would plummet. But it wasn't just the weather they were racing against. Locals wouldn't speak above whispers when the woods were mentioned. Old folks crossed themselves. Kids dared each other to get close, only to sprint back screaming at shadows. There was something off about those trees, something ancient, as if the woods themselves had memory. And in that memory, something malevolent stirred. The last time someone had gone missing in Hollow Creek was over 30 years ago, and they were never found. Deputy Sam Hargrove had lived in Grayfield County all his life. He'd heard the stories, of voices in the branches, of eyes that glowed without light. He never believed them. Not until that night. Not until he found Dana's car abandoned, driver's side door wide open, keys still in the ignition, and a muddy barefoot footprint pressed into the windshield from the inside. Not a shoe print. A bare foot. A child's, maybe. Or something smaller. That night they searched with dogs. The animals didn't make it past the edge of the woods. One whined, clawed at the ground and refused to move. Another bolted into the brush and never came back. The rest of the night was lit by headlamps and fraught with radio static. Tyler's backpack was found a mile in, ripped clean down the middle. No blood, no signs of a struggle. Just torn canvas and a Polaroid picture stuck to a tree. It showed the three friends smiling at a campfire, but behind them, barely visible in the dark, was a shape. Tall, thin, wrong. By morning, the air had changed. Thick with pressure, like something about to break. Sam called in drones, but the canopy was too dense. They could only see treetops swaying unnaturally, as if pushed by hands rather than wind. A new volunteer joined the search. Natalie Voss, Tyler's sister. She came armed with more than hope. Natalie was a former Army intelligence analyst, sharp, skeptical, unshakable. She didn't believe in folklore or ghost stories. But that would change. They moved deeper the next day. 12 searchers, all armed, all accounted for. Until the radios went quiet again, right at the 6-mile mark. That's when they heard it. A low, rhythmic clicking, like bones tapping together. Natalie described it later as something trying to mimic sound, but not quite understanding human rhythm. The clicking echoed, bounced from tree to tree. Then a scream tore through the forest, raw, human, and full of terror. They found Marcus, what was left of him, hanging 10 feet off the ground by wire-thin vines wrapped around his ankles. His eyes were gone, mouth stretched unnaturally wide. In his chest, something was carved. Crude symbols, sharp lines, overlapping in a spiral that seemed to twitch when stared at. One of the volunteers threw up. Another started praying. They cut Marcus down. His body was ice cold, though the air was warm. He'd been dead less than an hour. From that moment on, everything changed. Radios glitched, compasses spun. The deeper they went, the less sense the forest made. Trees reappeared, trails vanished. Time seemed to slip. Watches showed different hours. 2 searchers swore they saw themselves standing in the woods 20 feet away before those figures turned and bolted, leaving behind only laughter. Not human laughter. Dry, croaking, wrong. Dana and Tyler were still missing, but something else was clearly alive in those woods. Natalie took charge, mapping out a pattern using coordinates from Marcus's location and the Polaroid. It formed a spiral, a crude but consistent spiral. Every major clue, Marcus, the photo, the torn backpack, was on that spiral's edge. She proposed something chilling. What if they were being herded inward? Storm clouds were building fast. Wind shrieked through the branches like warning sirens. They had less than 12 hours. Natalie pressed on with Sam and 3 volunteers. They moved toward the spiral's center, found a clearing. Empty, but unnatural. No animal sounds, no wind, just silence, and a feeling so strong, one volunteer collapsed, sobbing. At the center of the clearing was a mound of stones, ancient, covered in symbols matching the ones carved into Marcus's body, and a voice, Dana's voice, called out faintly from beneath them. They dug, frantically, hands bleeding, and found Dana. She was alive, barely, her eyes wide, unable to blink. Her voice cracked, repeating the same sentence. "Don't look at it! Don't look at it!" She was missing fingernails, skin torn as if she'd clawed at the stone from the inside. She was rushed out by medevac, never spoke another word. Tyler was never found, but something else was. That night as the storm hit full force, Sam stayed behind. He couldn't let it end unanswered. At midnight he reached the mound again, only to find it gone, flattened, as if it had never been there. But around it were dozens of footprints. Small, bare, circling. He turned to leave and saw Tyler, standing at the tree line, smiling, but his eyes were black, and he wasn't alone. Figures, pale, thin, moving unnaturally between trees, watching, clicking. Sam didn't remember running, only the sound of leaves slapping his face, and the knowledge that if he turned around, he'd never make it out. He woke up at dawn, at the edge of the woods, clothes torn, throat raw from screaming. He resigned that day, moved across the country, never went near a forest again. Dana was institutionalized, never spoke again. Natalie visits her once a year, brings fresh flowers, and leaves them at the wood's edge. Locals now say the forest takes who it wants and gives back only what it doesn't need. The case remains open, but no one searches anymore. And if you're still watching, still listening, remember, some places weren't meant to be found. If you felt a chill, if something moved just out of sight, that's not your imagination. Subscribe for more stories that linger long after the screen goes dark. Like the video, share it if you dare. Just don't look behind you.